Ohio State's quarterback situation is far from settled, and Tavian St. might be the biggest wild card in the room.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Feel Good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. During today's show, we'll open up the big bag of mail, as well as discuss Lincoln Kienholtz versus Tavian St. during spring practice. But first, Tavian St. is a really talented quarterback. You don't get invited to the Elite 11 regionals and then advance to the Elite 11 finals if you're not a dude. Sitting at 6'4", 225 pounds, he has the frame of a guy that looks like he is going to be QB1 in Columbus in the future. This year, he might not be expected to be a starter. That does not mean that he might not create havoc during Ohio State's QB battle this season. Spring practice is right around the corner, and that's going to be the first opportunity for him to get on the field, to sling the ball all around the yard, and to show everybody he's not here just to be on the team. He is here to move up, and there is a path for Tavian St. to get on the field sooner than a lot of people think. Yes, it is a reality that it's going to be very hard for the young man to start this year. We're not going to gloss over that fact. But he's also not a surefire guy to be locked into being QB3. There is a scenario for this young man to be the backup quarterback to Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kienholtz. My gut still says that Sayin's QB1, QB2 is up for grabs. That's Tavian St. Clair's time. Go into Ohio State, tackle this opportunity, and take it full force. Don't try to go sideways or bounce around like some running backs do in the backfield. Go head on, go north, and tackle this thing like it's the only job you have is to move up the depth chart during your freshman year at Ohio State. Tavian St. was one of those guys this past year that was able to get a little early access to some Buckeye football on game day and to see what it's like to prepare for a national semifinal game against Texas, to see what it's like to prepare for the national championship against Notre Dame, to see those guys that have been at Ohio State for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, then all of a sudden they're lifting up that trophy at the end of the day in jubilation and celebrating their hard work. The story that they can now tell that has some roller coaster along the way of some obstacles that nobody would have ever guessed would be there. And Tavian St. got to see that. Got to see a guy in Will Howard who transferred in from Kansas State, who was a phenomenal quarterback for Ohio State last year. Not the most talented guy, but he was efficient, and he got the job done. And Tavian St. could take things from everyone. He's also going to be working with this year during practice, during spring camp, some of the same guys that he was throwing to during practice last year. A couple months ago. Wow, my years are still year in season, but it was literally a couple months ago. He was on the sidelines against Texas. He was on the sidelines against Notre Dame, seeing those guys there. His ability to get that early access, not just to being an early enrollee, but to being someone that can get acclimated to the culture of Ohio State earlier than a lot of guys would have originally thought when the playoff was implemented about 10 years ago, that's huge. That is a big deal. And most of the time, when I look at a young player, not just a quarterback, I look at his frame. And I want to know, does that young man need to put on weight? Does he need to cut weight? Is he too short for the position? Are you hoping he gets a growth spurt? There are a lot of questions that come into my mind in regards to a guy that is coming to Ohio State to play football. Well, with Tavian St. I had the same questions in my head, but till I look at him, I'm thinking, oh no, his frame is there. 6'4", 225 pounds. He looks like a guy that's a third-year player in college, and he's an incoming freshman. Now, for Julian Sayin, he is a guy that looks like a freshman. Now, he is going to get bigger. He is going to get stronger, hopefully get faster too. So all those things are going to happen, but he still needs to put on some weight. Still, currently, as we're talking right now, he still needs to put on some weight. Lincoln Kienholtz, same thing. He's bulked up since coming in to Ohio State, but he also needs to put on some weight. Tavian St. is going to gain the muscle, going to put on the mass that is needed. But if you're coming in at 6'4", 225, they might find a way to keep you between 225 to 230 and just become solid. Trying to get that grown man strength a little bit earlier than you might get it. And that's key for him. You have the height. You have the frame. You have the touch. You got recognized at the national level in high school, being invited to actually advancing to the Elite 11 finals. That's huge. And for these young players, they know who the dudes are. I mean, it doesn't take long for guys like a Denzel Burke, who was at Ohio State, or a Quinshon Judkins or Will Howard to look out there, and as they're walking out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for the final time as a player, they look back and say, that's a dude, that's a dude, that's a dude. And they are looking around saying, oh, they got some young guys here that can make some noise on the football field. Now, they got to put it all together, and they have some work to do. But based off the sample size that they have of those players that are leaving, they can look out there and tell you, that guy could get it done, and that guy could get it done. And Will Howard at the podium at the NFL Combine talked about Julian Sayin saying it's his time now. He hasn't even been given the keys to the offense yet. But Will Howard is saying it's his time. I believe it was Tavian Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, one of the two running backs, talked about James Peoples. And they have high hopes for that talented young running back. Denzel Burke had high praise for Julian Sayin. These older guys realize they got some talent at Ohio State, and they know a dude when they see it. Tavian St. Clair, I believe, can be a dude. We have not seen his film in college. We don't know what he's done on the practice field as far as reviewing the tape. So none of us right now can sit up here and say, unless you're a player or a coach, that you have seen it with your own eyes out there on the practice field, or you have seen it with your own eyes from him in high school. Many of you may have seen him play in high school. But that transition from high school to college, whoo, buddy, it's tough. Especially when you're thinking about high school to the Ohio State level. There are a lot of guys out there that are good in high school. But, man, when you get to that college level, that high level, the pressure's too much, the lights are too bright, and they just can't handle it. I've seen a guy in high school be a guy that has talent. They say in practice he's pretty good. And then all of a sudden, when the lights were on a Friday night, when he was thrust on the field due to an injury to the starting quarterback, the lights were too bright. You have seen it in college football. And you may have a name in your head right now about a guy that you were very high on. All of a sudden, he gets out there and wets the bed. It doesn't get it done. Now, why is it? May it be, was he out there too early? That's possible. May it be that he folded under pressure? That's possible. Or the light's too bright? That's also a potential reality. There are a lot of things that go into a guy that maybe goes out there a little too early, or a guy that goes out there at the right time, but you think it's the right time, and he just doesn't put it together. There are a lot of guys out there like that. Tavian St. Clair can be QB2. Absolutely. There's no questions asked. I firmly believe this year you can have a true sophomore starting quarterback and a true freshman backup quarterback. Part of my gut is looking at Lincoln Kienholtz. What is he going to do? Will the lights be too bright for him? I'll say my thoughts for that in the very next segment. Because it is Kienholtz versus St. Clair versus Sayin, but the battle might only be between St. Clair and Kienholtz, two talented quarterbacks, but only one guy can hold the title of QB2. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no place to get in on it than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. These two quarterbacks are very, very talented. Kienholtz was a guy that when he committed to Ohio State, I was elated and so excited about how this young man was going to be utilized in Columbus, Ohio, knowing he was not being asked to come in and play right away. I thought this was a great opportunity for Ohio State to get a guy that's more athletic. That's a freak of nature and brings that three-sport high school athlete mentality to Columbus, Ohio to compete every single day with himself and with his teammates. Tavian St. Clair, same thing. Multi-sport kid, multi-sport athlete in high school, played basketball and baseball as well in high school, a three-sport athlete in his own right, which is another thing. I think Ryan Day loves the competitive nature of both of these guys, but also the ability for them to be multi-sport athletes to compete in multiple spots in high school where you're getting worked on in different skills in each area. Basketball is different than football, which is different than baseball. None of them are the same. Working on different muscles, working on different techniques, working on your mentals in different areas. There's a massive benefit for that. Well, all that is true about both of those guys. Only one guy can be QB2. And let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that Tavian St. Clair is a guy to win the QB2 battle, and QB3 is Lincoln Kienholtz. My gut tells me at the end of spring, if Tavian St. Clair does enough to jump Kienholtz, which it would be a lot to do, but it's possible, Kienholtz is going to the portal. Then that puts Ohio State in a really odd spot because we're people like myself were saying all winter, go get a quarterback, go get a quarterback. Go get you a quarterback that can be seasoned, or go get a guy that can compete with Julian Sayin to be QB1. Whatever it is, go get a quarterback. You need either one to compete to be a starting quarterback, or go get a guy to be a Tristan Gebbia or Chase Chugunov, one of those guys that's been around college football for a very long time that can come in and help keep the culture, help with the maturity in the room, and help the young guys get acclimated and get more up to speed with college football. To date, Ohio State has not taken in a quarterback transfer yet. I believe that Ohio State will go out in the spring portal window and get at least one. If Kienholtz dips, you're probably getting two. Because trust me, I don't think Ryan Day nor Brian Hartline want to go into 2025 with Julian Sayin being the starter and then Tavian St. Clair being the backup and everybody else in that room is a walk-on. That would not be the scenario they want to walk into. But that's real. You have to prepare for what may happen. In this world of the transfer portal and NIL and tampering and all of those things that are going on, you kind of have to prepare for anything to happen. Kind of like Kevin Garnett said after the Celtics won the championship in the late 2000s, anything is possible. And I do think that Ryan Day is realizing it's a real possibility that you may be down to two scholarship quarterbacks at the end of the day. While the walk-on quarterbacks are talented and you're not going to be a walk-on at any position at Ohio State and not have the talent to do so, you don't want to roll into a year with your third-string quarterback being a walk-on. You don't want to do that. Now, if it's a TC Coffey scenario, where TC Coffey is a guy that could have gone to other schools and gotten a scholarship to play football and would have been a player at other schools, that's different. I don't believe they have that kind of guy in the QB room right now. Also, let's remember the last time we saw TC Coffey on the field was a couple of years ago, and he wasn't the third or fourth guy on the depth chart. He just happened to get on the field in a blowout and even scored in that game, and everyone's thinking, who is this kid? Oh, he's a walk-on? Playing like that? Get him on scholarship. Give him some money because he's going to be a big piece of the pie for the Buckeyes. Go get a portal quarterback. Go get one. For Kienholtz, I think this is the biggest thing for him because he's not only having to compete for the starting role, you're competing to even keep your own spot on the depth chart. While some of you may be listening to this and saying, Jay, you're crazy. Ain't no way Ryan Day is going to put a true freshman at backup quarterback. Okay? There are a lot of people out there that believe that Ryan Day would never start a true freshman wide receiver game number one. We saw how that went down. There are a lot of people out there that believe that Ohio State would have never had a guy transition from defensive end to defensive tackle and be the fourth defensive tackle in the playoff in rotation. That happened too. Now, one of those guys is Jeremiah Smith. The other one's Edric Houston. And I bring up Edric Houston on purpose because Edric Houston came into Ohio State to be a defensive end. And as a defensive end, he knew he was coming into Ohio State. You're at best the fifth DN on the team, no matter what. You're not jumping Kenyatta Jackson Jr. You're not jumping Caden Curry. At best, you're the fifth defensive end. Knowing that there's a guy in Joshua Mickens that's been there before you, who's a little bit different body, a little bit different frame, has a different skill set, that's trying to make sure that you aren't the fifth best or you're the sixth best. You add in all of the other guys that Ohio State has in that room, there's a lot of guys trying to be the fifth best defensive end at Ohio State, and it wasn't going to be likely that he was going to get the most playing time at Ohio State if he was still playing DN. All of a sudden, I don't know if it was spring practice or fall camp, but I remember pictures of Edric Houston and looking at him and thinking he wasn't like that the last time we saw him, which was probably spring practice. He wasn't that big. He put on some healthy weight. And then when he got on the field consistently for Ohio State, you're realizing, oh, man, this young man has the goods. He has what it takes to be a starter at Ohio State. If there was a scenario this year that Ty Hamilton and Tyler Williams were not the Buckeyes starting D tackles, you may have seen him play a whole lot more. But when you have two guys that are about to get drafted to the NFL that were both invited to the NFL Combine, you're not going to play as much, especially down the stretch in the stretch run of the playoff. Those are the biggest games of the year. You're not going to get on the field as often as you might like to. That's the reality. The reality is also this. Edric Houston gives a great blueprint for Tavian St. Clair. Where Edric Houston came in, was coachable, he did whatever the coaches wanted him to do or needed him to do. When it came to Mickey Mariotti and the strength and conditioning program and the nutrition staff, what did he do? He immediately bought in with all of them. And it's not like we're just saying that to say it. Physically, he's not just putting on weight to put it on and look a little sloppy. No. He put on healthy weight. He gained muscle. He gained the mass needed to move from being an outside guy to an inside guy. The next thing you know, he's on the field consistently making play after play after play. And that's the same thing is going to go for Tavian St. Clair. Compete. There are going to be moments for whoever is QB2 at Ohio State to get on the field this year in mop-up duty. Probably won't happen against Texas. I don't think Ohio State, if they win, the game will be a blowout. I don't think that at all. Grambling State, in the other non-conference game, I do expect whoever the backup quarterback is to get on the field and to play a whole lot. Let's think back to this past year. Part of me wonders if Devin Brown was the backup quarterback because he'd been on the team longer. Not because he was the more talented quarterback or the guy that people truly believed would have been the backup quarterback due to the talent. Ryan Day does some things that are very specific and strategic when it comes to making decisions with the team that he's coaching. Remember, a few years ago, there was a quarterback situation between Jack Miller III and C.J. Stroud. Justin Fields is the starting quarterback. And the next thing you know, they didn't have a guy that was a true backup. First game that they put a backup in, I think it was Stroud. The next time they put a backup in, it was Jack Miller III. In the playoff, though, when the rubber met the road, Fields went down with an injury against, I believe it was against Clemson. Stroud went in for a play. And then Fields came back on the field and threw a touchdown on that play when he returned from an injury. And that was a time that everybody kind of got the clarity that they wanted to tell everyone that Stroud was the guy. Now, you didn't get that this year. I know the Michigan State game, Howard went out. Next thing you know, Devin Brown throws a touchdown. But Devin Brown was the first guy off the bench all year. Maybe it was because he was older and Ryan Day wanted to kind of shield the young guy, knowing you're not starting this year. The guy that's going to start next year might be you. I'm going to keep you away from the media as much as possible, keep you out of getting a lot of attention because you're a true freshman. It's a lot for a young guy. I'm going to kind of protect you from yourself. So all of a sudden, when it's time for you to take center stage, you're ready. And you don't have the stuff in your brain clouding your vision and making your thoughts get all jumbled up as you're trying to get formatted because of the things that happened during your freshman year. Throwing too much on anyone can be bad news bears. Throwing too much on one of these guys could show that they're not ready for the job. With Tavian St. Clair, there's a true path for him to get on the field sooner than expected. To be the backup quarterback this year, he can't compete for the starting role. There'll be a lot they'll have to do to get that job. But for Kienholtz and St. Clair, those are the two guys I'm watching the closest. Yeah, I'm watching Sayin too with these other three guys. But I really want to see who gets the upper hand in this battle between Tavian St. Clair and Leaky Kienholtz. My gut tells me there's a good possibility that St. Clair wins that battle. There wasn't a battle, though, when it comes to the questions that you guys have submitted to be answered here on the show today. It's a Mailbag Friday on a Feel Good Friday. We'll dive into it next. We're all about the stats. because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with the room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big cruise, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing that has been a battle for your boy here lately is this microphone situation. I've lost 2 microphones in the span of about a month. My wife and I are in the process of buying a home, our first home together, and I'm not spending that money on getting a new mic. So until then, there will be a battle in my head with the microphone sound. But trust me, the clarity that you're used to with the voice that is the host of this show, that'll come back here very, very soon. The voice won't be going anywhere, just a clear sound through your speakers. It will be re-emerging sooner than you think, just similar to the Tavian St. Clair scenario with the quarterback situation. That was a big question there. There's some questions surrounding the Buckeyes quarterback situation. There's some questions you have submitted as well. This one, first question of the day, comes from @thejmizzle03. Do we have a feeling about vibes at spring ball? That's a question I believe everyone has. And we're going to be answering this question, I believe, over the next few weeks until Ryan Day gives us more clarity on what spring ball is going to look like. There will be a presser today where Ryan Day will be speaking for the first time since hiring and promoting numerous coaches this offseason. So there will be a lot of questions people will have and getting a lot of clarity, maybe having some more questions after the presser in regards to spring ball and what's going on with the Buckeyes coaching staff and what things will look like. I think for everybody involved, let's get right to the question. I think for everybody involved, spring ball is going to be a time period for everyone to get used to Ryan Day. There's, 17 guys that might be able to get drafted from Ohio State's roster last year. Buckeyes are losing 8 starters on defense. That's a lot of guys you're losing. That amount is one that will cause some guys to think, Ohio State's going to take a step back. Or there'll be maybe somebody in the team right now that's thinking, they're gone, it's my time to change the culture. No. Ryan Day sets the culture at Ohio State. Done a great job with it. But in all totality, for a guy that's never been a head coach at all until coming to Ohio State to be the head coach, he's done it well since he got promoted. He was at Ohio State a couple years before that. He's done a great job of setting the culture in recruiting, in the NIL space, on game day, and with the media, everything. He's done a great job of setting the culture. He's not perfect. There's never been a perfect coach. But one thing he's done very, very well is make sure everyone realizes this place isn't for everybody. And if it's for you, we're going to work hard every single day. So you're going to try to get used to the culture of Ryan Day during a practice, which goes into why Ryan Day is going to have a more slow, methodical approach to spring practice. But also when it comes to the players and the coaches, getting used to everybody. I mean, think about it. Hartline's been at Ohio State for a long time, but he's now, once again, the offensive coordinator, and he's calling plays. That's a combination he hasn't had in his career. Keaton Bailey being double duty from being co-OC to tight end coach. That's new. Tyler Bowen being the O-line coach. That's new. Carlos Lachlan ain't unchanged. He is still running that RB room and doing it very, very well. On defense, Larry Johnson's still there. He has a new assistant D-line coach. James Laurinaitis is still there. Nothing's changed with this title. But then Matt Guerrieri, Matt Patricia, Tim Walton, that combination, those 3 guys that I recently mentioned, that combination right there is one that this is going to be a time for them to get acclimated to Ohio State football. So when Ryan Day discusses a slow, methodical approach to spring practice, it's not just because the players played their last game on January 20th. It's also because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of guys coming in, a lot of transitioning, moving. I forgot Billy Fessler, now QB coach. A lot of things are new. And this approach is going to allow everybody, including Ryan Day, to figure things out. Maybe Ryan Day is realizing with the turnover on the coaching staff and having so many older guys gone, there is no reason to do a true full-time scrimmage on the spring showcase day. Maybe that's a big reason why. Maybe it's not because of the tampering that goes on and Matt Rule trying to keep his guys from being poached by other teams out there, so he's going to restrict the access they have to watch those young men play. That's true. That's a possibility. But I think this is wise by Ryan Day. So spring ball is going to be a time to get acclimated. It's going to be a time for the culture to be everyone to understand what the true culture is for Ohio State on a day-by-day basis during spring ball. But also, I do believe there's going to be a time to compete. And I recently went back. Actually, it was a clip on Snapchat from when I sent to some people when Tim Walton was hired, and he was talking about competing. He said, "We ain't care about no room. We're here to compete." Thinking, I like it. I hadn't heard of Tim Walton before. That was the first time I was listening to him speak. I'm thinking, I can pick up what you're putting down. The aspect of competing in spring practice, especially when you know you got 15 practices, you got a couple months off, and then you're putting the pads back on to ramp things back up for the fall season. There's going to be some hitting going on. Bloody Tuesday might be a thing during spring ball. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of hitting, but that's one of those things that is going to bring out the competitive nature in guys. Well, let's go back to a couple guys you talked to earlier. Well, all three, between Julian Sayin, Kienholtz, and Tavian St. Clair, from the oldest to the youngest, they're not playing a physically demanding position. They're playing a position that is the leader of the offense. The offense is going to go as the quarterback goes or as the offensive line goes. They're going to have to compete not just with each other, but with themselves. There's going to be a period of culture building. There's going to be a period of competing. There's going to be a period of acclimation, getting acclimated to everybody. Truly the install, too. I mean, there's a whole list of things before we get to the last word in regards to the vibe for spring practice. These are all things I think is going to happen. Spring practice is going to be fun. Like I'm going a little bit different here. It's going to be fun. There are things that are going to happen with spring practice, but the vibe is the same. Continue to do what is needed to prepare Ohio State to go on a championship run, to make Ohio State history, to do something that's never been done in Ohio State history at all, which is win back-to-back national championships. They can do it while also accomplishing all these goals. Last but not least, I mean, after the install, which is installing everything from the coaches, what they want, to the players getting used to everybody, and installing the offensive scheme and the defensive scheme and some early on changes that you may see. It's a showcase. Let's have some fun. Put the pads on, get inside the shoe, and let's make this thing ride. Because everybody understands. I said it maybe on yesterday's show. This is a time there's going to be a lot of people out there that don't go to the shoe. They go on this day every single year, and it's a family event. You get general admission tickets, $10 to $15. Maybe you want to get down a little bit lower. You spend a little bit more money to bring your family down there, and you eat some good food. You travel to a great city, and what do? You watch the Buckeyes. Tickets during the regular season, they're expensive. I mean, many of us saw the ticket prices to get into Ohio State versus Texas, or Ohio State versus Tennessee, or Ohio State versus Notre Dame in the Natty. Those ticket prices were through the roof. Well, if you got a family of 4 or 5 or 6 and you save up your money for the drive or the plane ticket and the hotel, this is a great opportunity for everybody to watch the Buckeyes and to watch a showcase. The showcase itself, we can all speculate like I do all the time. No, I don't know what it's going to be. Ryan Day is the only person and some other people in the circle that have a sense of what it might be. I don't know. I don't know at all. Due to the vibe of spring practice is one of competing, one of install, one of acclimation, and all the things he went through. It's going to be a good old time as Ohio State strives to win back-to-back national championships for the first time in the history of the illustrious Buckeye football program. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. It's college basketball. There are conference tournaments going on as we speak, and there's no better place to stay up to date on college basketball and to get your bracket prepared for the big dance than Locked On College Basketball. Find the Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On College Basketball podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Let's head to Locked on Buckeyes on a Friday. We'll see you tomorrow morning.